The next person I'd like to introduce is Cynthia Izon, and she's the field representative for the Republican Party for 2nd Congressional District.
I'm a little bit shorter than the others up there. Just let me know if you can't hear me back there, okay? I am speaking to you guys today about the progressive movement from the 1960s on to the present day right now. If some of you have been here to the other tea parties, you would have heard me speak a little bit of the past. Rousseau, the French philosopher who was actually considered the father of fascism, led to Robespierre and the French Revolution, and so on. And kind of that is the root of the progressive movement that we see today. That's kind of where it started. Although there is nothing new under the sun, I'm sure you go back further and find those ideals somewhere else. Contemporary progressivism is stated that it grew out of social activism and Naderite and populist left political movements in conjunction with the civil rights, the GLBT, feminist and environmental movements of the 1960s to the 1980s. A lot of these modern American progressives you will recognize if you watch Fox News and listen to Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh and so on. But Barack Obama leads the pack. Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, John Kerry, Russ Feingold, Al Franken, Dennis Kucinich, John Edwards, Ralph Nader, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Bill Ayers, Al Gore, and many others that are still in office, unfortunately. A lot of progressive publications that are out there, the progressive magazines of The Nation, The New Republic, American Prospect, The Huffington Post, that says a lot of evil things about Glenn Beck that are not true, and so on. There's radio. Air American did go bankrupt, thankfully, but it was on. Years, and they still have Pacifica Radio that was founded in 1949 by conscientious objectors to World War II, and also they have Democracy Now! They have other media voices like Keith Olbermann, Bill Maher, however you pronounce his name. Unsadly, they have Ron Reagan, who is vastly different than his father, and the Young Turks, which is a talk show. And I'm sure that it could be argued they have NBC, ABC, and CNN. And The View. They have Joy Behar and Michael. Yes. They also have community activist groups like Maine's People Alliance and Northeast Action, and of course there's PETA. They have the Students for a Democratic Society, which is also called SDS, and they're, one of their former leaders called the Black Panthers are Viet Cong. I'll get into that a little bit too. And from the SDS grew the Weather Underground that I'll mention a little bit too. Progressive celebrities, I'm sure you've heard, Michael Moore. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Jodie Foster, Martin Sheen, Matthew Perry, Susan Sarandon, Oliver Stone, Sean Penn, George Clooney, and the list goes on. It probably would be a shorter list to find the conservatives in Hollywood, but they do exist. I haven't seen the list. But there's also Norman Mailer, who said this of 9/11. The key thing is that we in America are convinced that it was blind, mad fanatics who didn't know what they were doing. But what if those perpetrators were right and we were not? We have long ago lost the capability to take a calm look at the enormity of our enemy's position. I won't tell you what I'm thinking about him, because that would not be good in children's ears. But he is one of the progressive liberals. Now, if you look back in history, if you know your history, the 1960s fascist or progressive takeover of the universities is quite similar to the fascist takeover of the German universities that started in the 30s. Both considered themselves revolutionaries of the left, Students from these movements reacted with enthusiasm over their professors reading to them from works written by people such as Benito Mussolini or some other liberal fascist. However, both would in turn react violently towards anyone who did not agree with them. In 1966, at a conference at Johns Hopkins University, the French literary critic Jacques Derrida, who since passed away, introduced the word deconstruction, a term coined by Nazi ideologues, into the American intellectual bloodstream. Deconstruction is a literary theory which holds that there is no single meaning to any text. That caught fire in the minds of academics and students alike who hoped to be liberated from the dead weight of history and accumulated knowledge. According to Derrida and his acolytes, reason was a tool of oppression. Hitler had declared much earlier that what was required was a revolt against reason itself, for intellect has poisoned our people. Well, I thought that the opposite of intellect is ignorance, and the opposite of smart is stupid. But what do I know? My mind's been poisoned. In 1970, the Weather Underground declared a state of war against the United States. I don't remember too much about that because I was actually born in the 70s. So. Their first bomb attempt, however, was intended for a dance for non-coms at Fort Dix, New Jersey. Instead, thankfully, it didn't go off there, but it did go off at the Greenwich Village townhouse, killing 3 of the terrorist members.
Yay!
Unfortunately, they did perfect it so that it did go off other places, not just with them, but that was through their lack of experience, I guess. One of the guys who died in that blast had previously said that they needed to turn New York into Saigon as a way to radicalize liberals. Student activists from the campuses of Berkeley, Columbia, and colleges across the United States declared their heroes, people they looked up to be Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Mao Zedong, and Ho Chi Minh. Yeah. Personally, my heroes are Jesus and John Wayne. But how many of you have seen the Che t-shirts? They have baby onesies, they have bikinis with Che's face on them. And this guy, if you know anything about him, was a cold-blooded killer. He wrote in his journal that hatred as an element of struggle, unbending hatred for the enemy, which pushes a human being beyond his natural limitations, making him into an effective, violent, selective, and cold-blooded killing machine. That's what he was. His motto was, if in doubt, kill him. This guy killed many people and was even compared to Himmler. Not something I'd want for myself, but